Several years ago, Stephen Covey wrote a book entitled 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Habit number 5 is seek to understand before seeking to be understood. The problem that a lot of us have is that we think that we know what someone is saying, and so we prematurely decide what they're saying, and we fail to listen to all that they're going to say. That's even more true when it comes to our relationship with God. So often we rush into the presence of God with 5 requests and the stopwatch. I only have this much time, these are the requests, get it done. It'd be a little bit like, imagine that you are trying to cross the street to get to Panera Bread. You want to get there because you want to enjoy their flaky, buttery croissants. But on the way across the street, you fail to recognize that there's a garbage truck barreling down upon you. Lo and behold, it hits you. Well, fortunately, you don't lay there on the ground too long before an ambulance comes and the EMTs get out, they find you bleeding, and in the middle of the EMT working on you, doing all the important work he's got to do, you say, "Hey, if you wouldn't mind, could you cross the street and go get me a croissant?" Now, in some ways, that's a little bit like what we do with God. God's trying to do some important work on our soul, and we have these things that are on our mind. How is it that we can get in sync with God to know what He's actually wanting to do in our lives and what we ought to ask Him for? Psalm 46:10, the Bible says, "Be still and know that I am God." Maybe before we rush into the presence of God and start clamoring and talking, maybe we just get before Him and listen. Look to Him. I have this experience from time to time with the Lord. And it's a little bit like Isaiah. In Isaiah chapter 6 and verse 1, he says, "In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord high and lifted up. I saw the King exalted." And he says, and a few verses later, I was like, "Woe is me." That just means I'm a wreck. I'm a man of unclean lips. And when you get before God and you really look at Him, yeah, you've got these things on your mind, these problems. And if you're like me, it just cuts down to the honesty. When you really spend time with Him and just kind of listen and just kind of sit there in His presence, all of a sudden it's like all the things I thought were so important really aren't that big a deal. Really, I got to work on right here. I need you to do something about right here. Changes everything. I challenge you. Get before the Lord today and shut up. Stop talking and listen. You might be surprised what He says.